Today it's Maui's turn. A few months ago, I ranked every luau I've been to on Oahu. That's episode 95 if you want that one too. And enough of you asked for the Maui version that I promised I'd get to it. Same rules apply. This is my honest ranking, not a nice list where everyone gets a participation trophy. Quick honesty check before we start. I've personally been to 4 Maui Luaus: the Feast at Mokapu, Old Lahaina Luau, Drums of the Pacific, and Myths of Maui. Those 4 get the full ranking treatment because I can only rank what I've actually seen with my own 2 eyes. After that, I'll walk you through the rest of what's out there on Maui, the ones I haven't attended myself yet, so you still get the full picture no matter where you're staying. One thing before we get into it, if your Maui itinerary is already built and you just want a second set of eyes on it, I do $50 itinerary reviews now. Send me what you've got and I'll send back notes within 2 business days. And if you haven't even decided whether a luau belongs in your Maui budget, episode 6 covers that whole question, so maybe start there and come back once you've decided you're in. If you want my full planning walkthrough for the island, that's episode 47, How to Plan a Trip to Maui. My top pick, if the budget can stretch for it, is the Feast at Mokapu at the Andaz Maui in Wailea. This is a luxury option and it earns that label. Classic seating runs around $280 per person. Premium is closer to $340. And the first time I paid that price, I remember thinking it better be worth it. And it was. The setting does a lot of the work. It's on a lawn overlooking the ocean at the Andaz, and it stays beautiful even after the sun goes down. Dinners served family style instead of a buffet line, which changes the pace of the whole evening. You're not standing in line holding a plate. You're sitting with your people while the food comes to you. I had a client last year planning a Maui honeymoon for himself and his soon-to-be wife. He mentioned almost as an afterthought that he was thinking about surprising her with the Feast at Mokapu. I actually squealed out loud on that call, which isn't something I'd usually do with clients. I told him it would be one of those nights they talk about for years, and I meant every word of it. If you're planning something that deserves a splurge, a honeymoon, an anniversary, a trip you've been saving toward, this is where I'd point you first on Maui. Second place is Old Lahaina Luau, and if the budget is a deciding factor for you, this might end up being your actual first choice. A few things changed here since the 2023 wildfire, and if you're working off an old blog post or an old YouTube review, you need the update. Old Lahaina Luau survived with only minor wind and smoke damage, but roughly 200 of their 300-plus employees lost their homes. They reopened in March of 2024, and the format changed while they're rebuilding. It used to be a buffet. Now it's a 4-course family-style meal brought to your table. Tickets run around $230 for adults, less for kids, and that includes an open bar all night. One thing that surprised me is there's no price difference between the traditional floor seating and the regular tables. Most places charge more to sit up front, but not this one. The other thing that sets Old Lahaina apart is what's on stage. This is strictly Hawaiian and Tahitian dancing, no Samoan fire knife performance. If you've been to a Maui Luau before and the fire knife dancing was the highlight, that's not what you're getting here, and that's on purpose. The show traces Hawaiian history from early migration through the missionary era through King Kalakaua, and is clearly built by people who care about getting that story right. Booking this luau also means your money is going toward a business and a workforce that's still rebuilding. That's not why I ranked it second. The food and the show earned their spot on their own. But it's worth knowing. If you want a fuller picture of how Lahaina is recovering, episode 94 covers that with Lisa Pierce. Third is Drums of the Pacific at the Hyatt Regency Maui in Ka'anapali. Tickets run right around $200. This is a big production, multiple Polynesian cultures represented, a full stage, fire knife dancing, all of it. Where Feast at Mokapu and Old Lahaina both lean into intimacy and restraint, this one leans hard into spectacle, and it pulls it off. I had a client last year staying right at the Hyatt Regency who wondered if she should look elsewhere for her luau instead of the one at her own resort. She had young kids with her, and I told her something I tell a lot of parents in that situation. Don't underestimate how much the walk matters. Being able to head down from your room, do the whole evening, and walk your tired kids straight back to bed afterward, no car seat, no drive, is worth more than people give it credit for. She went with Drums of the Pacific for that exact reason, and it worked out great for her family. I went during a stretch of unpredictable Maui weather, the kind of evening where you can't tell if it's going to clear up or dump on you. It started raining before the show even started. The performers didn't miss a beat. They kept dancing, kept drumming, completely unbothered, while half the audience scrambled for cover, and the other half just leaned into it and got soaked laughing. That's the kind of thing that tells you a show is well run. Nobody panicked, the night didn't fall apart, it just turned out different, kind of unforgettable version of the same evening. If you're staying in Ka'anapali and want a big, loud, full sensory night without the drive to Lahaina or Wailea, this is a strong option, especially if convenience matters as much as a spectacle. Fourth is Myths of Maui at the Royal Lahaina Resort, and this is my pick if the budget is stretched thin and you still want the full luau experience, fire knife dancing included. It's a buffet instead of table service, which keeps the price down. And kids' tickets can run as low as around $115 depending on the date. I'll be upfront that fire knife dancing is Samoan, not Hawaiian, so if cultural accuracy specific to Hawaii matters to you, Old Lahaina is a better match. But if you want the classic postcard version of a luau, drums, fire, and a full night of dancing without needing a second mortgage, Myths of Maui delivers that. I went with my mom, and it's one of those nights where the show almost wasn't the point. We sat there with Mai Tais, she kept elbowing me every time the fire dancer came around. Some of my favorite luau memories aren't really about the luau at all, they're about who I was sitting next to. Those four are the ones I can rank from firsthand experience. Maui has more luaus than that, so let me run through the rest of what's out there, since a lot of you are thinking about places I haven't personally reviewed yet. Wailea has two more worth knowing about. The luau at Grand Wailea is the priciest one on the island, $300 for standard seating and $360 for Ali'i Premium, which buys you the first 2 rows and puts you first in line at dinner. I haven't been there myself, but my friend and fellow travel writer Chelsea has, and what stuck with her was how different the entertainment is from a typical luau. A dancer suspended from a palm tree on fabric doing an aerial performance, almost Cirque du Soleil style. Plus, a hula dancer in a giant parachute skirt. Private tables are standard there too. Her full review is linked over at hawaiitravelwithkids.com. Down the road at the Wailea Beach Resort, Au Moana does a family-style dinner with an oceanfront setting, though they mix tables, so don't count on having your group to yourselves. Over in Ka'anapali, Maui Nui Luau at the Sheraton has a built-in advantage nothing else on this list can touch. It's held right at Black Rock, so you get a front row seat to the nightly cliff dive at sunset before the show even starts. If Kapalua is more your speed, the Ritz-Carlton's Tale of the Kapa Moe sits further from the crowds, with both standard and premium seating. South Maui has Gilligan's Island if you want something casual and budget-friendly in Kihei. And if you're still trying to figure out which of these areas actually make sense for your trip in the first place, that's episode 71, my full breakdown of where to stay on Maui. Here's something that trips up families more than the actual luau pick does. I worked with a mom who wanted something small and low-key because her kids get overwhelmed in big crowds. She already booked one of the bigger resort luaus before she called me. When we talked it through, it turned out she had no real idea what she signed up for. She thought it was a dinner outside with maybe some music playing in the background, not a full choreographed show, pre-show activities, a photographer working the crowd, and 3 hours of structured evening. For her family, that was too much. We talked through some of the other options, some I'd been to myself and some I'd heard about from friends in the industry, and she ended up somewhere that actually fit her kids. If you want more stories like that one, episode 100 goes through the booking mistakes I see most often, and it's not just about the luaus. That's the kind of mismatch an itinerary review catches before you're standing at check-in wondering what you got yourself into. One more thing worth mentioning, even though it's not a luau in the traditional sense, Maui Ocean Center in Ma'alaia brought back its dinner show called Migrations this past May after it had been off the calendar for a while. It's not exclusively Hawaiian. It moves through the different cultures that settled on the islands: Polynesian, Asian, Mexican, European, with dancing and a 4-course meal built around that story. It only runs Friday evenings. I haven't made it there myself yet. It's actually next on my list, so I can't rank it against the others, but if you want something that steps outside the usual luau format, it's worth keeping an eye on. All right, 2 updates before I wrap up, because if you've read an older blog post about Maui Luaus, you might be planning around things that don't exist anymore. Feast at Lele, the one that used to run on Front Street in Lahaina, is permanently closed. That venue was destroyed in the 2023 wildfire, and there's no reopening timeline. If you've seen it recommended somewhere, that's outdated information. And South Maui Gardens, the more casual hula and food truck spot in Kihei, has had its Polynesian show shut down. Some recent reports call it a permanent closure, others still say it's an infinite pause. Others still list it as an indefinite pause, so the details are a little murky right now, but either way, don't plan a trip around it being open. Nobody's officially said why, but what's been floating around in Maui travel groups, it sounds like it might be tied to noise complaints and zoning pushbacks from neighbors, since the venue sits in a residential area. I want to be clear that's community chatter, not a confirmed reason, so take it with a grain of salt. It was never a full luau, more of a hula performance with food trucks on the side, but it was a nice low-cost option for South Maui. South Maui Gardens itself has been pointing people towards Gilligan's Island as the closest comparable option. So that's your best backup if you were counting on the Kihei show. And if you're on the west side instead, the Napili Kai Foundation runs a keiki hula show every Tuesday evening at the resort in Kapalua, $10 for adults, $5 for kids, and it might be one of the best deals on the whole island if you want an easy evening of hula without the luau price tag. Here's where that leaves us. Feast on Mokapu if you can make the splurge work. Old Lahaina Luau if you want the most culturally focused night at a better price point. Drums of the Pacific for scale and spectacle in Ka'anapali. Myths of Maui if budget matters most and you still want the fire knife dancing. And if none of those match your resort location or your family's energy level, Grand Wailea, Au Moana, Maui Nui, Tales of the Kapamoi, or Gilligan's Island round out the island depending on where you're staying. All of this, along with links to book, lives at hawaiitravelwithkids.com. I've also got a Maui trip planning guidebook and a few free email courses that walk you through the whole island step by step. And every one of those, along with my full list of trusted resources and guides, is at hawaiitravelwithkids.com under Hawaii Resources. And if you want someone to actually look at your Maui plans and tell you whether the luau you picked fits your trip, that's what consultations and itinerary reviews are for. Both are linked at hawaiitravelwithkids.com. Thanks for listening. If this saved you from booking the wrong night, send it to someone else planning a Maui trip. See you next time. Aloha.